To move goods or people across the ocean in the early 18th century was a brutal, unforgiving gamble. You were entirely at the mercy of the weather, and your cargo could be erased in an instant, which makes the survival of a document like this all the more remarkable. This is the American Weekly Mercury, specifically the edition printed in the first week of January 1721. While it was printed in Philadelphia, the ink on this page functions as a highly compressed intelligence briefing. Looking at this map of the entire European theater, we can track the exact locations of state power and geopolitical friction reported in a single week. Within these columns, we can isolate 4 distinct zones of activity: diplomatic stalemates in the north, rapid military mobilizations in the south, a bitter financial rebellion in Paris, and catastrophic shipwrecks on the ocean. Placing these disparate reports side by side reveals how a single failure, a broken treaty, a volatile market, or a careless spark sent tremors through the wider geopolitical landscape. We start our reading at the northern edge of Europe, where the geopolitical borders are actively being tested. A dispatch out of Petersburg reports the hardline stance of the Russian Tsar. The text notes he has flatly refused any peace mediation with Sweden, signaling a clear intent to maintain military pressure. Meanwhile, in Stockholm, the opposite dynamic is playing out. The Swedish king is rapidly finalizing a formal peace agreement with Denmark. To solidify this new alliance, the Swedish king is reported to be dining aboard an English admiral ship, accompanied by the English envoy. This highly visible dinner is a calculated show of unity against Russian expansion. Further south, in Hanover, the Emperor issues a strict deadline, requiring all involved powers to send official representatives to formally negotiate terms. The dispatch also notes a persistent rumor of a face-to-face summit expected between the kings of Denmark and Great Britain. The mandatory summits, the staged naval dinners, and the rushed treaties were a coordinated attempt by Western powers to build a containment wall against the Tsar's growing influence in the Baltic. While the monarchs in the north were relying on polite dinners and slow diplomacy, the intelligence coming out of southern Europe was strictly focused on raw logistics. We look at the dispatch from Lerida, Spain, which tracks the physical movement of newly raised military recruits arriving in the city. The text establishes a baseline, reporting 280 men assigned to reinforce the regiments of Lyon and Austrias. Next to that, we see a massive draft of 1,400 troops deployed to the foot regiments of the 2 Castiles. The paper lists a cross-section of unit types, infantry, horse, and dragoons, heading outward to fortify the regions of Galicia and Estremadura. To oversee this buildup, the regional governor confirms the Marquis de Lede is en route to personally inspect the provincial fortifications. Royal treaties can be stalled, debated, or ignored, but the physical march of thousands of infantry and dragoons across the Spanish countryside provides a highly reliable metric for measuring an empire's true military intentions. Moving away from international borders, the intelligence from France reveals a severe domestic crisis unfolding in the streets of Paris. The October 5th dispatch reports a controversial royal decree demanding French subjects bring their private physical money directly into the king's mints. The crown enforced a strict exchange rate. Citizens received 2/3 of their value in coinage and 1/3 in paper bank bills. Looking at the mechanics of this diagram, the policy effectively functioned as a state-sanctioned wealth tax. The government absorbed highly valuable hard currency from the public and returned a portion of that value in printed paper, backed by a struggling state. The Parisian public instantly recognized that their physical coins held far more intrinsic purchasing power than the king's newly issued paper notes. This physical gold is the wealth citizens were trying to hoard, and the exact wealth the crown attempted to confiscate to balance its ledgers. The resistance to this policy reached the highest levels of French society. Cardinal de Noailles explicitly refused to publish the royal mandate, halting its enforcement until the Parliament officially registered the law. When an economic mandate threatens the immediate financial survival of a population, even an absolute monarch finds out that their power has strict, immovable limits. Finally, the newspaper turns its attention away from state policy and details the extreme physical violence of the 18th century merchant trade. A London dispatch reports the total loss of the Tiger Galley, a 250-ton commercial ship sailing home from Jamaica with 35 passengers. The cause was entirely mundane. A young boy negligently threw the hot snuff of a candle into an open rum barrel. The spark ignited the fumes in the hold, triggering a rapid, catastrophic explosion that consumed the wooden structure of the ship in minutes. The survival statistics were grim. Only the captain and 9 men managed to escape onto a makeshift raft. The remaining passengers either burned on the deck or drowned in the Atlantic. A second disaster near Malaga was caused by raw environmental fury. Impetuous winds drove multiple commercial vessels onto the rocky shoreline, tearing apart a large corsair. The aftermath was chaotic. Local peasants swarmed the wreckage and captured 200 surviving crewmen. The commander they pulled from the sand turned out to be a Venetian renegade, leading a highly diverse, multinational crew of naval outlaws. Whether destroyed by a careless candle in the cargo hold or crushed by unpredictable coastal storms, the immense capital and human labor required to participate in 18th century global trade could vanish without warning. When we step back and look at the entire front page of this newspaper, we see an extraordinary volume of global intelligence compressed into a few columns of ink. In one continuous reading, we have traced the abstract negotiations of distant kings, the physical mobilization of thousands of soldiers in Spain, a bitter domestic fight over currency in France, and the sudden, violent loss of human life in the Atlantic. The rigid structure of the printing press forces these massive geopolitical shifts and intimate human tragedies to sit side by side. This is exactly how the citizens of 1721 actually processed their world. Textbooks often reduce this period to slow, predictable arcs of empire building, but these weekly dispatches reveal an environment defined by constant friction, sudden crises, and overlapping global anxieties. The American Weekly Mercury proves that the modern temptation of living through an overwhelming, deeply interconnected news cycle is not an invention of the digital age. It has been our reality for centuries.
The Daily Dispatch, history in print.